We have new details in the case of an abducted pregnant mother of two out of Miami-Dade. Authorities found human remains during their search yesterday for 27-year-old Andre Lloyd. At this moment, the medical examiner has not positively.
She had no idea those would be the last moments of her life. Andrea Lavette Lloyd was alone that night, working the overnight shift at a group home, something she had done countless times before. The quiet hum of the night surrounded her as she went about her duties. But outside, someone was waiting. Someone who had once been part of her life. Someone she had known for over a decade. And he hadn't come to talk. At 12:30 a.m., the door swung open. And before Andrea could react, she was under attack. A man rushed in, grabbed her, and began beating her. She struggled, but he was relentless. There was no time to scream for help, no time to run. Within seconds, she was being dragged out of the building, her feet barely touching ground. Onlookers would later describe the scene as something out of a nightmare. Andrea, fighting for her life, was forced into a white Honda Civic. The door slammed shut. The car sped off into the darkness. And just like that, she was gone. For the next several hours, her family, friends, and law enforcement scrambled for answers. Where had she been taken? Who was responsible? And most importantly, was she still alive? The answer to that question would come soon enough, and it would send shockwaves through her entire community. What would you do if you sensed danger in your relationship? Let me know in the comments. Andrea Lavette Lloyd was more than just a name in the headlines. She was a daughter, a sister, a mother, and a woman deeply loved by those around her. Born and raised in Miami-Dade County, Florida, she had always been known for her warm heart and selfless nature. Friends and family described her as someone who would go out of her way to help others, a trait that made her perfect for the career she had chosen. Working as a caretaker at a group home was more than just a job for Andrea. It was calling. She spent her days and nights looking after those who couldn't care for themselves, ensuring they had everything they needed. Her dedication to her work was evident in the way she treated the residents, always with kindness and patience. She was reliable, compassionate, and driven, someone her coworkers and family admired. But outside of work, Andrea's life was not as stable as it seemed. For 11 years, she had been in a relationship with Xavier Johnson, a man she had known since she was a teenager. Together, they had built a life, raising two young sons, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, with another child on the way. From the outside, they seemed like any other couple. Young parents trying to make things work, balancing responsibilities and raising a family. Behind closed doors, however, things are beginning to fall apart. Reports later revealed that Andrea had discovered Xavier's infidelity. It wasn't just one mistake, it was a pattern. For years, she had endured the emotional weight of betrayal, the whispers of suspicion turning into painful confirmation. And at some point, she made a decision. She wasn't going to live like this anymore. For a woman like Andrea, who had dedicated her life to caring for others, the idea of walking away wasn't easy. She had built a home with Xavier. They shared children. Their lives were intertwined in ways that couldn't simply be undone overnight. But she also knew she deserved better. Had she told Xavier she wanted to leave? Had she given him an ultimatum? Or had he simply sensed it? The way her presence felt different. The way she no longer looked at him the same way. Had he realized that the control he once had over her was slipping? Whatever the case, one thing was clear. If Andrea was planning to break free, Xavier wasn't willing to let that happen. And on the night of December 7th, 2021, he made sure of it. December 7th, 2021, started like any other night for Andrea Lavette Lloyd. She clocked in for her overnight shift at the group home, just as she had done countless times before. The routine was familiar, the quiet hum of the late hours, the responsibilities of caring for those who depended on her, the sense of duty that kept her going even when exhaustion set in. This was her job, a place where she felt safe, a place where she belonged. But that night, something felt different. The air was heavy with an unsettling stillness, the kind that lingers before something terrible happens. But no one ever sees it coming. Sometime after midnight, the group home was quiet. Inside, Andrea was alone, carrying out her duties. unaware that danger was closing in. Outside, someone was waiting. A shadow in the night. A presence that didn't belong. At exactly 12:30 a.m., the door burst open. Before Andrea could react, before she could process what was happening, he was on her. A sudden rush of force, a blur of movement. Xavier Johnson had come for her, but he wasn't there to talk. The attack was swift and brutal. He didn't hesitate, didn't pause. He struck her, his blows landing with calculated rage. Andrea, caught off guard, tried to resist, tried to fight back. But he was stronger, fueled by something dark and uncontrollable. The struggle lasted mere seconds before he overpowered her completely. She barely had time to scream before he grabbed her and dragged her toward the door. The night swallowed her cries, her desperate attempts to break free. Her feet scraped against the ground as he pulled her outside, where his car, a white Honda Civic, was waiting. He flung the door open and shoved her inside. The sound of the door slamming shut echoed in the empty night, and within moments, the car sped away. And just like that, Andrea was gone. For the briefest moment, the silence returned, as if nothing had happened. The group home stood still, empty, the only witness to a crime that should have never taken place. But the world was about to wake up to the terrifying reality that Andrea Lavette Lloyd had vanished, taken in the dead of night by the man she once trusted. Her family would soon wake up to the news that would shake them to their core. The woman they loved, the mother of 2 young boys, was missing, and they had no idea she was still alive. Why do you think no one was able to stop him? Could this have been prevented? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. When Andrea didn't return home, panic set in almost immediately. This wasn't like her. She was responsible, dependable. If she was late, she would have called. But this time there was nothing. No text, no missed call, no explanation. Just silence. Her family knew something was wrong. The feeling in their gut, the gnawing fear that something terrible had happened, was impossible to ignore. They tried reaching her phone. No answer. They contacted the group home, only to learn that she had been taken. The words barely made sense. Taken? By who? How? Where was she now? The moment the reality sank in, they didn't waste a second. Calls were made, reports were filed, and the search for Andrea began. By morning, the news had spread. Law enforcement launched a widespread search, scouring Miami-Dade County for any trace of her. Investigators pieced together the last moments before her disappearance. They reviewed security footage, confirming the horrifying truth. Andrea had been abducted right from her workplace, dragged into a car, and driven away against her will. The white Honda Civic became their first lead. As the hours stretched into the afternoon, Andrea's family clung to hope. Maybe she had been abandoned somewhere, left injured, but alive. Maybe she had managed to escape and was waiting to be found. The idea that she wouldn't be coming home wasn't something they were ready to accept. Then just a day later, on December 8th, 2021, the worst possible news arrived. A grim discovery was made in a wooded area near the Homestead Miami Speedway. Hidden deep within the trees, officers stumbled upon something that sent a chill through the entire search team. A large metal box, the kind typically mounted on the back of a pickup truck. But this one wasn't empty. Inside were human remains. Nearby, a vehicle believed to be connected to the crime was found. Every clue pointed to the unthinkable. But it wasn't until forensic teams arrived that the final confirmation came. DNA testing left no room for doubt. The remains inside the metal box belonged to Andrea Lavette Lloyd. She was gone. For her family, the world shattered in an instant. Just 24 hours earlier, they had been holding onto the possibility that she would come home, that she would hug her children again, that this was all just a nightmare they would soon wake up from. But there was no waking up from this. Andrea had been brutally taken from them, her life stolen in an act of violence that felt as cruel as it was senseless. Her 2 young boys would never see their mother again, and the baby she had been carrying, the child who never even had a chance to take its first breath, was gone with her. The search was over, but the fight for justice had only just begun. The moment Andrea's body was discovered, the investigation took a sharp turn. What had started as a desperate search for a missing woman had now become a homicide case. And police had a suspect in their sights almost immediately. Xavier Johnson, Andrea's boyfriend of 11 years, the father of her children, the man who had shared her home, her life, her most intimate moments. He wasn't just a person of interest. He was their prime suspect. In the hours following Andrea's abduction, Johnson had remained silent. He hadn't joined the search efforts. He hadn't pleaded for her safe return. He hadn't acted like a man who was terrified for the mother of his children. That in itself was suspicious. But as investigators dug deeper, they found something even more damning. Johnson had a history, one that Andrea's family had either not seen or had chosen to ignore for the sake of keeping their family together. Infidelity wasn't the only issue. Control, jealousy, anger. These were all things that had festered in their relationship for years. And now, it seemed, they had erupted into something deadly. On December 8, 2021, the same day Andrea's remains were found, law enforcement made their move. Johnson was arrested. The charges against him were as severe as they came. First-degree murder, kidnapping, and burglary with assault. There was no ambiguity. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and prosecutors weren't about to let him slip through their fingers. Then came the moment that sent shockwaves through everyone who had been following the case. Johnson allegedly confessed. No drawn-out denials. No claims of innocence. He admitted to it. The brutality, the violence, the act of taking Andrea's life. It was all laid bare. But the question still remained. Why? Did he kill her in a fit of rage, unable to accept that she was leaving him? Or had he planned this all along, knowing that if he couldn't have her, no one else could? Andrea had been pregnant. She had been preparing to bring a new life into the world. Was that part of the reason? Had Johnson viewed the future she was building, one without him, as a threat to his control? As the legal process began, one thing became clear. This wasn't going to be a simple case. Prosecutors had the evidence. They had the confession. And they had every intention of seeking the harshest punishment possible. The state of Florida had long been known for its stance on capital punishment, and authorities began weighing their options. Would they pursue the death penalty? Would Johnson spend the rest of his life behind bars? Or would he somehow, against all odds, find a way to escape true justice? Andrea's family had already lost her. Now they could only hope that the system would deliver the justice she deserved. Do you think justice will be served in this case? Share your thoughts in the comments. Andrea Lavette Lloyd's murder didn't just take her life. It left a hole in the lives of those who loved her most. At the center of it all were two little boys, just 1 and 5 years old, too young to understand why their mother wasn't coming home, too young to grasp that the woman who had kissed them goodnight, who had held them close and protected them, had been ripped away from them forever. And she hadn't just been a mother to them. She had been carrying another life, a child who would never take their first breath, never feel the warmth of a mother's love. The weight of that loss was immeasurable. Andrea had been planning for the future, one where she was free, one where she could raise her children in a home without fear. That future was stolen in the most brutal way imaginable. Her family was left in pieces. A mother mourning her daughter, siblings mourning their sister, a family forced to pick up the shattered remnants of a life that should have never ended. The grief was raw, a wound that would never truly heal. But Andrea's death didn't just impact those who shared her blood. It sent shockwaves through the entire community. The news spread fast, from Miami-Dade County to people across the country who had never met her but felt the weight of her story. Candlelight vigils were held, flickering flames illuminating the faces of those who gathered to remember her. They stood together, holding hands, whispering prayers, demanding justice. They refused to let her name fade into silence. On social media, the outrage was deafening. People shared her story, urging others to remember her, to speak out against domestic violence, to make sure no other woman suffered the same fate. Hashtags flooded timelines, calls for justice echoing across platforms. Andrea wasn't just another victim. She was a mother, a daughter, a sister, a woman who had been loved, who had been trying to escape a toxic relationship, who had deserved so much more than the fate she was given. The world had seen yet another case of domestic violence ending in tragedy. But this wasn't just a headline. This was real. A family was grieving. A community was mourning. and two little boys would grow up with only memories of the mother who should have been there to watch them grow. But the fight wasn't over. Her family wasn't just mourning her. They were demanding justice. They were making sure her story wasn't forgotten. And they were making sure that the man who had taken her life would never have the chance to do it again. Andrea's story is not just about one woman's tragic fate. It's about a reality that far too many people face every single day. Her murder is a painful reminder of something that often goes unseen until it's too late: the silent, growing threat of domestic violence. Domestic violence doesn't always start with physical abuse. It can begin with control, slowly isolating a partner from their family and friends, manipulating their emotions, making them feel trapped. It can be subtle at first, disguised as jealousy or protectiveness. Then little by little, escalates. The warning signs are often there, but many victims either don't recognize them or feel powerless to leave. The statistics are staggering. In the United States, nearly 1 in 3 women has experienced some form of intimate partner violence. Every single day, an average of 3 women are killed by their partners. These are not just numbers. They are lives: mothers, daughters, sisters, friends, people who should have had the chance to walk away, to build new lives, to be safe. Leaving an abusive relationship isn't as simple as people think. Many victims stay out of fear of retaliation, fear of being financially stranded, fear that no one will believe them. Some have children to consider, making the decision even more difficult. Others are manipulated into believing that the abuse is their fault or that their partner will change. And in cases like Andrea's, when they do try to leave, the situation becomes even more dangerous. This is why awareness matters. This is why conversations about domestic violence need to happen. There are resources available: hotlines, shelters, organizations dedicated to helping victims escape before it's too late. But for those resources to make a difference, people need to know about them. Victims need to hear that they are not alone, that help is out there, that they have options. Andrea had made the decision to walk away. She was ready to reclaim her life. But in the end, that decision may have been what sealed her fate. That is the terrifying reality of abusive relationships. When a victim decides to leave, that is often the moment they are in the greatest danger. If someone you know is in a toxic relationship, don't wait for the bruises to show. Listen, support them, encourage them to seek help before it's too late. And if you've been in a dangerous relationship yourself, your voice could help others. Have you or someone you know ever been in a dangerous relationship? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story could make a difference. The wheels of justice began turning swiftly after Xavier Johnson's arrest. In his initial court appearance, Circuit Judge Mindy Glazer underscored the gravity of the situation, stating, "This may be a death penalty case." As the legal proceedings unfolded, Johnson was assigned an assistant public defender, despite his initial intention to hire private counsel. The charges against him were severe: first-degree murder, kidnapping, and burglary with assault. In a related civil matter, Primerica Life Insurance Company filed an interpleader action to determine the rightful beneficiary of Andrea's life insurance policy. Johnson, listed as the primary beneficiary, had not made an appearance in the case, leading to a default being entered against him. The court decided to stay the proceedings pending the outcome of his criminal trial. Throughout this ordeal, Andrea's family remained steadfast in their pursuit of justice. Her father, Arnold Lloyd, expressed profound grief and a determination to see Johnson held accountable. The community echoed this sentiment, rallying behind the family and demanding that the legal system deliver a verdict commensurate with the crime. As of now, Johnson remains incarcerated, awaiting trial. The case continues to draw attention, serving as a somber reminder of the devastating impact of domestic violence and the imperative for vigilance and support for those at risk. Andrea Lavette Lloyd's story is one that should never have happened. A young mother full of life, dedicated to her family and her work, was taken in the most brutal way imaginable. She had dreams. She had a future. She had children who needed her. But in the end, the person she once trusted, the father of her children, became the reason she would never see them grow up. This case is more than just a tragic headline. It's a harsh reminder of how dangerous toxic relationships can be, especially when someone tries to leave. Andrea wanted a better life, not just for herself, but for her children. And yet, the very decision to break free may have sealed her fate. This is the devastating reality for so many victims of domestic violence. They suffer in silence, hoping for a way out, only to realize that the most dangerous moment is the one where they try to escape. If Andrea's story teaches us anything, it's that we need to listen. We need to recognize the warning signs. We need to support those who are trying to leave before it's too late. And we need to demand justice for those who are taken too soon. Her family continues to fight, refusing to let her memory fade. Her community still mourns, standing together in the hope that her story will serve as a wake-up call. But what about the countless others? The ones suffering in silence? The ones who haven't made it out yet? If you or someone you know is in a dangerous relationship, don't wait. Reach out. Get help. There are people who will listen, who will stand by you, who will make sure you're not alone. What do you think about this case? Have you ever witnessed or experienced a situation where someone needed help but didn't know where to turn? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice could be the one that helps someone else. And if you found this case eye-opening, make sure to like this video and subscribe. There are so many stories that deserve to be told. And together, we can make sure they are never forgotten.